Yes. Hmm. Hmm.
Okay.
And who's with us now?
Hey. I'm here.
We can hear you, Walt.
Okay, and I could see you folks, but somehow the camera is not connected here on this side.
Okay.
I think I need an invite.
Oh, to be a presenter, probably.
What?
He needs permission to show his face.
I don't know if you want to see my face, so.
His camera is not connected or ours is not?
Well, he said he thinks he needs an invite to.
We can't see him. He can't unmute him. He can't unmute his
Okay,
video.
here we go.
I thought I promoted him, I didn't, I apologize. Now I need to get.
There's on.
Nope, don't touch anything, it's working.
And here we go. We're good.
Hey, well, we just had a point to clarify. You asked that public comment not comment on land use. This application for the gas station is land use, but that's during public comment. So the public will have a chance to comment on this gas station down once we get into the continuation of the hearing. Is that all correct?
That is absolutely correct. Public comment is for anything that's not on the agenda.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, well, we're getting ready to call this to order. And now I feel silly with a gavel, and now I feel silly without one. There you go. We're in order. Okay, public comment.
There you go.
There we go. Public comment. Anyone have a public comment? Okay. Anybody online have public comment?
No one is raising their hand.
All right.
Is there anybody online?
Yeah, right.
And Lynn was there a second ago. He's gone now.
Lynn's a panelist, so I have these
Oh,
are the people that would be
okay.
public, but I promoted Lynn to a panelist so he can speak if he needs to.
Okay.
So Lynn, can you hear us, Lynn? Oh, he's gonna unmute if he needs to. We'll give him a practice on how to unmute.
Lynn, can you unmute your video on the bottom left corner of the Zoom? I don't see any microphone or anything.
I think it's important that we take a few more tries at Lynn.
I can't turn him on.
What's
He
the
is,
three dots? What are the menu options again? Put on full,
Hello.
yeah, see anything there.
So Lynn, we want to make sure you're included. Are you having trouble?
Could he text?
Yeah, who can you text? Do you have my number,
He's been texting with Sue.
Sue? Okay, give Sue a text and say, yeah, I'm here, but I can't unmute, and then we'll try to confuse you on how to do that. I mean, advise you.
Mm.
So we're not hearing from him. Well,
Does anybody have his phone number? I can call him, I can put him on a speakerphone.
Sure, I can give you his number.
Okay.
971-237-0906.
0906. Hi, Lynn, it's Angie. So are you having trouble unmuting or do you not have a microphone on your computer? So does your computer or laptop have a webcam or microphone on it? Okay. So it should be, so you're clicking on the bottom left corner where it says mute or unmute? What are you looking at? Are you looking at a black screen or? Okay, well, I can put you on speakerphone on my cell phone. I don't know if you're gonna be able to hear. It sounds like you don't have a microphone set up.
Okay.
It's not giving you that option.
Can he zoom in on his cell phone?
Do you have a smartphone where you can use the Zoom on your phone?
can you get yourself down?
So you just get on your
was
phone
also
and go to the Zoom and
There's
log
phone
in
numbers
just like you
to-
did on your computer.
Dial-in phone
And
numbers?
then your phone will have a microphone and a camera on
Tried
it,
it,
so
I
you'll be
don't know.
holding your phone.
And there's dial-in phone numbers here.
I think
I was
there's
gonna
dial-
say he could dial in just like I do when I
Yeah,
can't
that's the
get
other
into
option
a
is
meeting.
dialing in. You could just dial in off of the instructions on the agenda.
You know, the Zoom sound, but no pictures. Which is good enough.
Yeah, I think we need 4 here and John is 6, so.
Understand for the record, you do have a quorum right now.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I just thought,
Just a thought, but I understand. It would be nice if
right,
Lynn can come in.
pretty
Concur.
close here. Let's give it another few minutes.
Sure thing.
We're thinking he can maybe just dial in and have audio only.
Do you have a copy of the agenda? Do you want to get off the phone with me and call in? And that way you'll have just audio, but we'll be able to hear you and you'll be able to hear us. Okay, how, like 1 more minute or a couple more minutes?
I can get started reading the boilerplate. I gotta read most of this page. We can get started. I can do some, I'm doing just some reading on instructions.
Okay, so Ken's gonna get started on reading some instructions. If this is my cell phone, if you need me, text me. Oh, I see you popping up again, so maybe you'll get this figured out here in the next minute or so, okay? All right, bye. Okay.
Thank you, Angie.
Mhm.
All right, so I'll now open the public hearing, continuation of development review 23-2, service station and convenience store. The criteria which must be satisfied for approval of this action are listed in the city staff report. Public testimony must be directed to those criteria or other criteria in the plan or land use regulation which the testifier believes to apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the planning commission and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes an appeal based on that issue. Prior to the conclusion of this hearing, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional evidence, arguments, or testimony. The commission will decide whether the hearing will be continued to another date or whether the record will be left open for at least 7 days. Testifying instructions. If you are testifying, please state your name, residence, address, and full mailing address. If you wish to be notified of a continuance, appeal, or other action on this application, please print your name and complete mailing address on the form by the entrance. So the name of the applicant, Melissa Poland? Where is her name? Applicant Melissa Poland, yes. And does anyone challenge the planning commission jurisdiction to hear this application? Hearing no challenge. If any member has a personal bias or conflict of interest, they shall declare it now. If this gas station goes in, you may, and they have a car charger, you may see me charging my car there. All right. If any member of the commission has made a site visit, they shall state their impressions or observations. Walt, would you please go ahead with the city staff report?
Thank you, Ken, members of the planning commission. First of all, can you folks hear me? I just want to be sure I'm connected here.
Sounds good.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I'm not going to give you all the background, but I will note what page I'm on with my staff report. I'll just note that we held, I think everyone's familiar with the location of the property. It is zone C3. It's also in the central business district. And I think we're aware of the basis of the application. We'll note that this was heard on July 19, 2023, and the commission voted to continue the matter until the 21st to allow the applicant to provide additional information. For the record, they gave them until August 4, and they certainly met that deadline. Instead of reviewing the original application that we worked on, there were some pretty significant changes in their additional information. So I'd like to start on the top of page 3 here. And again, the applicant submitted information on August 2, met the deadline. A couple of things to note: the applicant reduced the size of the building to a little over 3,000 square feet. The northeast corner of the building is angled, creating a 15 by 15 foot clear vision triangle. There are 0-foot setbacks along West First and Maple Street, and a walkway surrounds the building, allowing access from both sides. The new plans include a revised exterior appearance. The above noted angled corner includes a bank of windows and a canopy, both visible from Maple Street. The store now features 2 points of entrance, one at the southeast corner of the building and fronting on Maple, and a second on the south side of the building facing the gas pumps. The north side along First Street includes some additional window treatments. The exterior finish of brick and CME is unchanged. There are 2 loading spaces identified adjacent to the store's south side. This required removing the pump islands about 1 foot to the south. The submitted vehicle turning diagrams were revised per the applicant's civil engineer. Otherwise, the location of the 14 parking spaces, trash enclosure, charging station, and underground fuel tanks is unchanged. The First Street access was increased from 24 to 30 feet, and bike racks and landscaping were moved to the west side of the structure, with additional landscaping along the west property boundary. The sign information did not reflect the new building, and a photo of an existing sign in Sheridan was submitted. However, the proposed location, as well as sign area information, was not provided. Now, again, this use, both the gas station and convenience store are permitted within the C3 zone. And as they're permitted in the zone, we also may review these within the overlay zone. The staff report in July included comments incorporated from ODOT and Public Works. I think these still apply as there is no material change to the layout. And again, this is a continuation. I just want to make this note. However, I am going to address the entire application and not just the revisions because of the changes. Let's see, moving on. Let's start with the general commercial zone. Section 1028.050A requires a submittal of a design review. And that's before the commission. That's the purpose of this hearing. Also, this section grants the planning commission authority to make certain changes to the layout. Under item B, the use will not be objectionable. Dust, smoke, cinders, fumes. Again, gas stations are controlled by DEQ, and the requirement is that they would conform to those state requirements. The one stipulation I would suggest is that if approved, we specifically require a lighting plan to ensure that lighting remains on the property. Retail or wholesale businesses may engage in limited manufacturing. That's not the case here. Item D, and this is top of page 5, compliance with requirements of off-street parking and loading. I looked at this layout. It shows that based on the size of the store and anticipating a certain level of employees, it would require about 8 spaces if you round it up for just the square footage. And I looked at an additional 2 for employees for a minimum of 10 spaces. This layout includes 14, which certainly exceeds the minimum requirement. We also have a requirement for a loading area. Commercial buildings are required to have a 12-foot wide, 30-foot long, 14-foot high loading area. In this case, since it's over 2,000 square feet, they are required to have 2 of these. The revised layout does identify 2 loading spaces located adjacent to the south side of the store. This required moving the pump islands about 1 foot to the south, and with this revision, the applicant supplied additional information on the turning radii showing how the site can accommodate various vehicles and potential traffic patterns. With a reduction in the number of pumps, a smaller retail store, and additional parking spaces, it appears the layout can certainly accommodate needed vehicle movements with the new loading spaces. As a note, any improvements, paving, etc., striping, whatnot, need to comply with the code. With regard to moving on to 1028.060, maximum height is 35 feet. The structure is basically 17 feet in height, a little portion approaching 20 feet, 17 feet for the top of the canopy for over the pumps. There's no required side or rear yard. In this case, though not required, they maintain a 60-foot setback from the west and south. The front yard, there's no required front yard. The layout does comply with this. There's no lot area requirement or width requirement. Obviously, the site would comply. There is a requirement for bicycle parking. It calls for 1 space per 10 parking spaces. They're only required to have 10, and even if it were 1.4 spaces, we don't round it up. So they have a plan for a bicycle rack on the west side of the property, and any improvements would be required to comply with the code chapter requirements. Regarding fencing regulations, all adjacent property is zone C3. If fence is not required, should they maintain the existing fence, they would have to comply with the requirements of the code. We have a clear vision area requirement at the First and Maple Street intersection. The distance needs to be 15 feet along each street side. And based on the building site plan, the proposal does comply with this requirement. I'm going to skip sign regulations, and I'm on the top of page 7 right now, as I'm going to discuss them in terms of the central business district. The final item under the C3 zone lists conditions that the planning commission may impose on the particular project. There are no criteria here. It's just that you have conditions and it outlines some options for you to consider. And again, I did previously recommend requirements on lighting. Now, moving on to the central business district overlay. This moves on to chapter 1046. And what's allowed in the underlying C3 zone is also permitted within the overlay. So again, just for the record, so these uses would be allowed. Now, beginning in under landscaping, here we go, bottom of page 7, under 10.06040, if it's not improved upon paving, structures, etc., it must be landscaped. And that is the case here. I estimate it to be about 500 square feet of area, possibly a little bit more. Under building standards, under 46050, the maximum building setback is 20 feet. No parking is allowed within that area. Other areas may be used for driveways. This provision does allow a 0-foot setback, and the building setback is 0 feet along each street. Building height must be within 25% of the average. They've been very consistent with that, and we noted that in a previous application, and that still applies here. Orientation, the main entrance to a building shall face a public street or be perpendicular to a public street facing an internal parking lot. Now here, there are 2 entrances, one on the southeast corner of the building and a second on the south side of the building, facing the fuel pumps. Based on the point of sales location on the interior, the southeast corner entrance would qualify as the main entrance, and it does face the public street. In addition, the second entrance facing the pumps is within 50 feet of the Maple Street sidewalk. Under item D, building facade, facades must include brick, masonry, or wood appearance. They've kept up the brick and masonry design elements here. Now, special design requirements under 46050E, this is top of page 9, for property located on either side of Maple Street, the following standards shall apply. 1, setbacks. The maximum building setback from a street side property shall be 0 feet. And again, the building does comply with that requirement. Item 2, building height. The building shall be within 10% of the average height of existing buildings within the block. And again, prior documentation shows that is the case here. The third item, the buildings shall be similar in character and design with existing structures. Now, here I note that buildings along Maple Street, again, have their main entrances facing the street with window treatments on either side of the door entrance. In contrast, the revised store shows the Maple Street entrance, but with window treatment angled to the wall to the north. The issue remains whether this proposed Maple Street entrance is similar in character to other entrances on Maple Street. The next item under F is drive-up, drive-in windows. That's not the case here. They are not suggesting that. Under item 46060 is signs, permitted sign types. They do include one sign on the canopy and one side above the entrance. The revised material includes a schematic for a digital wall sign, but the location was not identified. Maximum allowable area under 060B, the maximum allowable area is 1 square foot of sign for each foot of building street side frontage. The maximum length of the frontage of the building on First is 60 feet. So they're allowed 60 square feet of signage. As noted, the plans identify location, but are not specific to dimensions. While I'm a little bit disappointed they did not detail this further, please note that there is still a subject requirement for a sign permit, which requires extraordinarily detailed information, and that can be verified at the time of the permit is submitted. Further, the sign identified in the submitted photograph does not match the sign area identified on the south wall. So we have a picture of a sign that they're putting on, but it doesn't match with the schematic they have. Again, it's something that can, a issue that can be cured, if you will, through the sign permit requirement, but it doesn't match up with what they're proposing. The only sign with dimensions that they provide was a digital sign. I estimated 7.8 square feet total. Now, there's no limit to the number of signs as long as they don't exceed the square footage. I discussed illumination, that illumination should be reviewed as part of the building permit. Maintaining any illumination remains on the property and does not migrate into adjacent areas or the street. There are no prohibited sign types that they are proposing, and the only exempt signs would be a window sign. And if you place a window sign, it doesn't count toward the square footage. And let's see, electronic message centers, they are proposing that for the gas prices. This is an electronic message center. If you recall, for EMC, you doubled the square footage as part of the calculation. So their sign would count as 15.6 square feet toward their 60 square foot total. However, the upper limit for EMC is 24 square feet. So they're well within that boundary. So it's just a matter of how they take care of the other signs. Bear in mind, if the sign is placed in the window, it is not counted toward the square footage. However, as an EMC, they are still subject to a conditional use and variance application process to install the sign. And the final item is any signs installed must meet with ODOT requirements. Now, I'd like to work on some summary comments here on page 11. I think the one issue that comes down to is really the building entrance. They now have an entrance on Maple Street. The buildings, I think, again, buildings along Maple Street generally have a central entrance, and they have windows on either side. That seems to be the pattern for the most part. Not in all cases, but certainly for the most part. The building's Maple Street improvements show an entrance in the southeast corner of the building, window primarily located on an angled wall to the north. Now, the commission will need to consider whether this design is similar in character with design with the existing structure. If the answer is yes, then the building complies with the design provisions. That's it. They've complied. Now, however, if you find that it's not similar in character, the commission must consider whether a modification is warranted. And the modification is subject to provisions in section 1046-070. And they have to meet both criteria A and B. And criteria A notes modification is necessary to provide design flexibility where conditions unique to the site require a modification, or parcel shape or configuration preclude compliance with the provisions, or a modification is necessary to preserve trees or other natural features. The second item that must be met under B, modification of the standards in this chapter shall only be approved if the commission finds that the specific design proposal is a substantial compliance with the intent and purpose of the central business district. Now, regarding A, staff cannot identify unique conditions at the site, and there are no trees, natural features, or visual amenities requiring preservation. Only the potential circumstance may be the shape or location. But I think this gets into dangerous territory. This may be right for the specific goals of the applicant, but inappropriate for the size and location. Does not appear the application can comply with the decision criteria in A. Regarding B, judging design again is subjective. Unlike prior designs, there is now an entrance on Maple Street and significantly more window treatment. While it does provide a street entrance and some type of window improvement, it does not look like other frontages. So in the end, the proposal complies with a significant number of development requirements: building height, use, parking, loading areas, and so forth. The only issue is whether the proposed Maple Street frontage meets the design criteria. If the commission finds right up front the frontage is similar in character to other buildings, then addressing the modification criteria is not required. If you feel this improvement is similar in character, you don't have to look at the modification requirements. However, if the commission finds it is not similar in character, then the modification provisions in 1046-070 apply. Again, compliance with both items A and B of the section is required. And as noted, it may be difficult to support item A. In other words, I don't believe they meet the decision requirements for a modification. So again, staff cannot make subjective judgments, and it's up to the planning commission to look at that. Unless they can comply with the design requirements, it doesn't comply with the code requirements. However, if the commission finds the proposal complies, then staff has about 2.5 pages of recommendations for this particular project. And with that, that is the staff report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
All right, thank you. Well, I'll start with the sign and lighting. I know the lighting will come under an additional review by the planning commission. What's that review called?
Actually, not the lighting so much, it's the signs. If they come in with an electronic message sign, they will go ahead and require the conditional use and variance application.
Conditional use. That's for electronic signs only. Okay.
That is correct. The lighting is reviewed through the building permit process.
Okay, once we let go of it, who handles that lighting review process?
That would be through Yamhill County. They would go ahead and we would require a lighting plan. And someone from the county is going to have to certify that the lighting, the way they design the lighting, that it will remain on the property and not bleed into the adjacent properties or onto the adjacent roadway. That doesn't mean it suddenly becomes dark, but you don't have light shining on these properties or the right of way. The whole idea is to keep the lighting on the property.
Okay, thank you. And on review of their sign plan, once the planning commission approves this, what will that process look like, review of the signs?
They have to come in with a separate sign application that shows no more than 60 square feet of signage, and also the location, the dimensions. As I said, I was just a little, I wish they were more revealing on that. The picture that is part of your packet, I think, was from Sheridan. That sign didn't seem to match up with anything that was on their elevation schematic. So I'm trying to say, you have a gatekeeping situation here that they need a sign permit. If they cannot comply with the sign permit requirement, you have a provision where they can come in for a variance, but the gatekeeping is the sign permit. So they
Yeah.
are limited, and that's done through staff.
Staff. So that
Yes,
sign
sir.
permit comes to staff. And
Yes.
who is staff in this
Well,
case?
it would be Angela, myself, and Kim. I would,
Okay,
I kind of consider us staff. I certainly hope you consider me staff.
great. No, I meant, yeah, who are those eyeballs that'll be
Okay,
on there?
yeah,
Okay, well, that answers my question.
That was my question.
Okay.
The signage one.
Let's see, I don't have anything else. Sue, do you have any questions?
I have some statements, but I don't know that this is when I wanna.
No,
when we're supposed
I
to
think
do
we're
it.
just gonna question staff now.
Yeah.
All right, Lynn, do you have any questions for staff? For Walt?
Lynn, did you hear us?
If you. Lynn, if you don't have any questions, you can just shake your head no. Okay, we'll take it. I guess you'll be voting by head nod too. Okay, next is correspondence. Has there been any correspondence? Angie, any letters?
No.
Applicant's presentation. And please go ahead, and you might, if you have it, if you're able to, address Walt's concern about the sign not matching the photo, not matching the plan, if you can.
Sure. Good evening, planning commissioners. For the record, again, my name is Steve Kay, Cascadia Planning and Development Services, and I'm representing the applicant. My address is P.O. Box 1920, Silverton, Oregon, 97381. So after our last meeting, I reviewed all the feedback that was received with the architect and the civil engineer, and we worked closely together to modify the design, which you've seen, so that the submitted materials can meet the approval criteria. I believe that all the concerns that were raised at last month's meeting have been fully addressed with the revised application. When we met last month, there was a desire to move the convenience store building up to the Maple Street property line while also maintaining the clear vision area at the intersection. The revised proposal achieves this by clipping the northeast corner of the building and redesigning the store's layout within the structure. When moving the building 15 feet towards Maple Street, this also created an opportunity to add a landscape strip, walkway, and a wider drive aisle on the east side or the west side of the structure. In addition to moving the building closer to the roadway, the commission also wanted the applicant to look at the possibility of adding an entrance on Maple Street. The revised plans show that 2 building entrances are now proposed on both the south side and east side of the structure. These entrances are located close to each other so that clerks can monitor both doors at the same time. The southern entrance provides convenience for the traveling public that visits the store. The door and windows on that side of the building also assist the attendant when fuel needs to be pumped for customers. The entrance facing Maple Street includes a large window area and a canopy that helps complement the character of other storefronts along the street. At the angled quarter, additional window glazing and an awning is provided to enhance the streetscape appearance. Additional windows were also added on the first street frontage. The revised vehicle turning diagrams now include a graphic scale and contact information from the civil engineer. The site plan was also updated to clearly show how 2 loading spaces can be accommodated on the south side of the proposed structure. Although a specific design for the sign is not provided with this application, the applicant was always intending to request a separate sign permit through a different process after this application was reviewed, and if it's approved, then a sign permit would be submitted at that time. The applicant fully intends to meet all the city's size standards and will not ask for a variance for the sign that's placed on the structure. As you're aware, the electronic sign on the fuel pump canopy will be reviewed through a separate land use application process. The applicant has reviewed the staff report and has determined that all the recommended conditions of approval can be met. I appreciated our discussion at last month's meeting. And I hope you find that the applicant has, in good faith, tried to address all the issues that were raised at that previous meeting. If there are any other concerns that are raised tonight, please do so before you close the public hearing, and I'd be happy to discuss that with you as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll get back to you after testimony pro and con. Any testimony in favor of the application? Any online? Any testimony against the application?
You want me to stand up?
Yes, please.
Patty Perrin, 215 North Maple Street. So I went through and I was reviewing the schematics on the proposed site plan, because I'm looking at the picture here. And then also the one for vehicle at pump movement. And I still have a concern with the amount of drivable space when there are vehicles at the pump, delivery truck. And on the one where it's the vehicle at pump movement, it shows the vehicle sitting at a pump and a vehicle trying to go out onto Maple Street. And I mean, it appears that there's only maybe a foot between the vehicle at the pump and the vehicle that's trying to go out onto Maple Street. And when you look at it, it shows 12 feet from the pump to, I'm assuming that's where a vehicle would be parked to get gas or whatever. And then it shows 13.8 feet to the existing building, which would be the Mexican restaurant. And so I went out and I measured my car, I measured our neighbor's truck, which is a dually. And we're talking, for my car alone, it's 7 feet wide, and that's to the existing rear view mirrors. So we're talking about 5 feet between a vehicle at a pump and then trying to exit out of onto Maple. A dually is going to be anywhere from 8 to 8.5 feet wide, and that's at the mirrors. And so that only leaves maybe 4 feet, and that's to the existing building of the Mexican restaurant. So you can't go right up to the Mexican restaurant and be able to get out onto Maple. And then my other issue, so bottom line is, a pump exactly the same, and they're an exact amount of feet from the pump. you're reducing the amount of drivable space around those vehicles. And then the other comment that I had is on the pictures of everything, it appears that vehicles are going into the store from Maple, and they're going in from, I should say first, and they're going out on Maple. But all vehicles don't have their gas tanks on the same side. Some have them on the left, most of them have them on the right, the opposite, they're on the left, and some have them on the right. So is there going to be any indication of the flow of traffic when you go in and out of this gas station? So is all traffic gonna be coming in off of Maple and going out onto First, or vice versa? Or is there gonna be any indication of that for the store? Because that's gonna cause, again, a flow issue. And I'm gonna use me, for instance. My car has the gas tank on the right. So whenever I go to a gas station, I have to go to a pump that's on the right-hand side of me. Either that or the hose has to stretch across the back of my car, and that's not gonna happen. So I just, like I say, and maybe I'm being overly cautious, but that is still a concern for me, the amount of space. Anyway, that's it.
All
That's
right,
all.
thank you, Patty. Any neutral testimony? Yeah, keep it neutral.
I have Jenny Morrison who raised her hand. I don't know if it's,
Somebody raise their hand.
yeah, Jenny Morrison
Oh,
online.
Denny, what do you have for us?
All right, now she's allowed to talk.
No, she
Jenny?
won't.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Denny.
Hi, I have a comment to make, and I know I have a report from the Economic Development Committee. So this is sort of adjacent to that, but I want to address one thing in particular here. So the what Walt was describing about the intent and purpose of the Central Business District, and that the Maple Street entrance doesn't match the standard, is not similar in character, that would be my personal main concern. So this is me speaking as a person who, we live on, I should give my address, sorry, 20051 Northwest Adcock Road. And then we also own property at 915 East 2nd Street. So as a community member, a vested interest in the downtown corridor. And I see that what is being described here and the plans, and I appreciate that they've come back around, but the intent and purpose of the Central Business District and that entrance and what that space is taking up does not match the standard, is not similar in character. And I just would like to mention that and support my lack of, or express my lack of support for this because of that concern. And again, we have one opportunity to do things right in our small downtown corridor. There is very limited space, and this is a major decision, and it just does not fit. And we would be giving away the just the feel of our community.
All right, thank you, Jenny.
Okay.
Anyone else online that I may have gotten past?
No, no one else.
Okay, great. Thank you. Rebuttal of in favor, there was no in favor, no rebuttal of against testimony, and I think that goes to you, Steve, if you so care to.
So regarding the comments about whether or not vehicles could safely pass the pump area, there's more than enough room. If you look at the proposed site plan that gives the dimensions here, a typical parking space is 9 feet wide. So that will accommodate all the vehicles that were just described. And if you were to park within a 9-foot space, 3 feet away from the pump, you have 12 feet, and that's what's shown on this plan. So there is space here built into the plan to accommodate when people don't park right up next to the pump. And to allow vehicles to pass safely. There's still 12 feet beyond that point between the loading space and where people are parked along the pump. On the other side, there's 13.8 feet next to where people would park next to the pump. So there is enough room there to safely pass for any vehicle. As far as the flow of vehicles, there are going to be times when people are going to come off of First Street and people are going to come off of Maple Street, and that happens with any gas station that you see. People need to come in the direction so that they can have the fill for their vehicle on the right side when they're filling up at the pump. Now, as far as the issue about the door, if you remember at last month's meeting, there was a desire to accommodate a door on Maple Street. There wasn't a requirement to do that. You can still be providing an entrance to a building within 50 feet if it's perpendicular to the main street frontage. So, we wanted to make sure that we tried to accommodate what was requested. So we did add a door and some additional windows on that Maple Street side to try to satisfy what was discussed or, accommodate that desire. But it's still not a requirement because we do meet the standard, even if there wasn't a door there. And the location of windows and doors along Maple Street is not a design requirement or a specific design standard in the Central Business District. So it's reasonable to conclude that the proposed building is consistent with the character of the downtown. And the way that the code is written, it's similar in character to the downtown. I think this does meet that criteria. The building does sit on the property line. It is a masonry structure, which is consistent with other design buildings in the downtown. And in this case, it does have an entrance that's facing the street. And it includes canopies, which also complement the streetscape that's currently along Maple Street. So, for those reasons, we feel that a modification to the standards isn't necessary in this case. It's not required because it is similar in character. If there are still concerns from the Planning Commission side regarding that issue, I'd like to talk to you more about it, but that's currently where we stand on the issue.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, commission questions to the applicant and the public. Let's see, commission questions. Final staff comments. Sue, where do you think your statements fit? Are they part of deliberation that you want to say to us, the decision makers? Is that what your statements are about, how you feel about whether we should vote yes or no? That would wait till deliberation.
I guess so.
Yeah, okay. So let's look for questions to the applicant, the public, and I think we can ask them some questions too if we want to, that come up. Do you have any questions for the applicant or?
No, I have just a lot of statements.
Okay.
I have no questions. I had kind of my observations or my opinion.
Yeah, I think that'll wait till we
Right.
deliberate. Lynn, do you have any questions for staff or public or the applicant? Got it. Okay, thank you. I'd like to, I've been flipping through, well, I'd like some help finding that. You quoted the central business district considerations. Where is that in the staff report?
Okay, that is page, page 7 begins the criteria and findings for the CBD.
Thank you. And where, yeah, page 7, you said. And where is the part that talks about 50 feet?
Oh, okay,
That farther on?
I have that just a second.
No, the 50 feet from the main street. The entrance has to be 50 feet, which is weird.
It's page 8C.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The main entrance to a building shall face a public street or be perpendicular to a public street. Now, that second entrance doesn't face a public street.
No, the second entrance faces the fuel pumps,
That's
but
right.
it is also within 50 feet of Maple Street entrance.
In
What
term-
really is the issue, though, is top of page 9.
Let me just finish here, Walt, and
Okay,
then we'll look at
sorry
that.
about that, Ken. My apologies.
An internal parking lot with the main entrance door. The main entrance to the building shall face a public street or be perpendicular to a public street facing an internal parking lot. Does that mean that the building is way set back from the street and you get, first there's a parking lot and then there's a street? That wording is not clear to me. Well, can you help me straighten that out?
Okay, basically it says that the number one choice is you walk out the door onto a street or walk off the sidewalk into the building. If the
Right.
entrance is not directly onto a street, it has to be within 50 feet of the street. So in other words, this building is a perfect example of that option. Let's see. I think we can go back 1 or 2 cases where even on this one, the entrance facing the pumps is perpendicular to the street and within 50 feet. So that is certainly an option until you get to the Maple Street requirements.
Which are?
And that's on the top of page 9, where it talks about buildings shall be similar in character and design with existing structures. And that's, in other words, if we were to remove this from the Maple Street frontage, it would, I'd say, comply 100%. Once you put it on the Maple Street frontage, you have that one extra layer of requirements that talks about making an attempt to match the other buildings that are already there. And that's
Okay.
on the top of page 9.
Okay. Buildings shall be similar in character. So there is an entrance on the front, and whether there's windows on each side, it seems to be subjective to the commission as to whether that's similar in character.
That is exactly the core of this
Okay.
application. In other words, if you find it to be similar, there's no need to talk about modifications.
Yeah.
If it isn't similar in your mind, my other comment would be, I don't believe it complies with the criteria for a modification.
Okay, let's see, where are we now? We're in questions and then final staff comments. Okay, any other questions for any of us before we go to final staff? Any more questions for the applicant? Okay, anything else before we go to final staff comments?
Right, before I lose my opportunity to speak, I did want to say that if the commission finds that, as proposed, this entrance is not similar in character, you know, we are open to doing something that would make it more in character. One thought would be, instead of a sliding door on that frontage, it would be a single door with windows on both sides. If that is the desire, to have windows on both sides of the door, that could be provided in that same space. If that would make it more similar in character in your guys' view. So just want to throw that out there. If that's a sticking point, there are other options that we could look at. And that could be a condition of approval. So there'd be assurance that it would happen.
Yeah, well, it sounds like he's offering us an option here that would not require another go-round, that we could kind of mock something up and put our initials on it. We could define it to our mutual agreement and then approve it. Is that true?
That is what is being offered. I'm a little nervous with approving something you haven't seen. They know what they're thinking. You might have some idea what they're thinking,
Yes.
but if they get an approval with that as a condition and the final building design does not meet with your satisfaction, or you start seeing it built and holy heck is raised, approve what you can see. That's my only comment. Now that we're looking at maybe options here, let me throw this at you. This application was deemed complete on June 30th of this year. And we're already 52 days into the 120-day requirement. I am not opposed to going for another month, but I would request that the applicant, since this will be the second time they're coming back with a design change, is that they toll the 120-day clock. Because, as I said, I don't think it's fair for you to approve a design that you haven't seen. And if they want to come back for another bite of the apple, at least see what they're proposing before you make a final decision. But again, toll the clock, because we're going to be running into that 120-day time limit, and we're already at 52 days. So we're pretty close to halfway there. Again, I'm not opposed to giving an applicant a chance, but I want to be sure you folks approve what you're looking at as opposed to what you think you're looking at.
Okay, you've talked me out of the chicken scratch idea.
Okay.
So is there a way to move forward without all this formality again, if we're just down to what the front door is going to look like?
Well, one of two options. If it comes down to the front door, you either make the decision that, well, let me give you three options. You make the decision that the front door and entrance is similar to other front door entrances on Maple Street. And therefore, I think everything else has fallen into place that it could be approved. Option B is that you say that this front door is not what we anticipate. This is not the design we're after for the central business district and the requirements for Maple Street, and therefore you deny it. The third option is to go ahead and say, we're really close. If you want to provide some leeway to the applicant, I would say continue the hearing to September, provide a date that they provide the information, but also have them toll the clock. And I think that would be fair, because you folks you have one hearing, then you have another hearing on this. They're basically asking for further modifications. And I think it's only reasonable for the commission to request that.
Okay. All right, thanks, Will. Next we've got Unless waived by the applicant, the city shall allow the applicant at least 7 days to submit final written arguments, but no new evidence, facts, documents, data, or testimony in support of application. The chairman should ask the applicant if he feels he wants to waive the right to submit additional arguments at this time. Do you want to waive the right to submit additional arguments?
I'd like to address whatever concerns
Yeah, I don't
you
know
guys
why-
have,
I don't
so.
know why you would. Yeah, all right. The chair asks the commission to make one of the following motions. Motion to close, motion to continue hearing for at least 7 days from today, to keep the record open at least 7 days for additional written arguments. A continuation is,
Next month. Not
well, it doesn't look like a continuation is one of those options here.
Well, you can continue it. I mean, that's always an option. You can continue it to a date and time certain. That's always an option with the planning commission. You would just probably put a cutoff in terms of when the information is submitted and provide staff enough time to go ahead and write another report. So again, I think those are your three options. Either it meets it, it doesn't meet it, or if you think the applicant could come up with something that you're interested in, provide the continuation, give them a deadline in which
At least 7 days, yeah, okay. That is one of the options.
Okay, yeah, and so,
Okay.
okay,
Yep, so motion to continue the hearing, keep the record open. Nothing more is done now, but we're gonna talk some more. So,
With it, we would have the opportunity to communicate what we're wanting, I would assume.
right, but
beware, folks, if this is continued, you cannot chat amongst yourselves.
when? Tonight we can?
Oh, tonight you're welcome to,
Yeah, that's what I meant.
That's what
but between now and the next hearing.
Right, no, I understand.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
What I want to do is do some deliberation here. Shall we continue the hearing first and then deliberate?
No, I think your deliberations need to walk into the hearing. In other
Yeah.
words, I've provided three options for you to consider. You still haven't decided whether or not you want to approve or deny this. And part of your deliberations, you can come to that conclusion or continuation.
Yes, that makes sense. All right, so I think we're gonna deliberate now and see how we'll move forward at the end of that. So Sue, do you want to start?
Sure. So, February 8th, the Yamhill City Council per Greg Graven, he sent us all an email. And the city council asked the planning commission to be oversight on a project to name the city of Yamhill as a designated historic district. That project was started January 13th, 2023. And we were asked to be oversight on this committee. On March 8th, they also, the city council, per Greg, sending us another email, with the intent to ensure a coherent and integrated approach to economic development and policy direction to help the city of Yamhill grow and prosper through several targeted programs, started a contract with the consulting on grant funding with the Business Oregon and grant writing with Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Government. This was to include economic development, transportation systems planning, SBA loans, GIS, mapping, census service, local government capacity building services. The city council asked planning to select a committee for economic development. This was in March, to accommodate these above projects. Our planning commission meeting was, because of staffing issues, was canceled that month. So in April, we asked for volunteers, the planning commission, to start this Economic Development Committee. We had our first meeting on May 6th with 5 volunteers. And because Yamhill is so far behind on ordinance and priorities, the committee is working to establish not only the priorities so that we can think 10 to 15 years down the road for this city, but we were asked as an economic committee, and I'm part of that committee. I'm part of the planning and I'm part of the committee. We were asked to establish not only this Economic Development Committee, but also trying to designate the downtown core as a historical district. So I asked Angie if she would put a picture up on the screen. Do you mind doing that for me?
No, Sue, I'm not sure where you're going. It seems kind of roundabout.
Well, hear me out.
And I just want to say that if you're talking economic development and how this fits into that plan, that's not part of the criteria that we can bring to bear on this decision.
It is and it isn't. This committee, we were asked in January and February and March to establish, and it was established then before this came back to us, before this project came back to us.
All right,
Now-
well, once you finish, then we'll ask Walt to settle this on.
Okay, anyway, the committee has already noted the need for pedestrian-oriented CBD rather than an auto-dependent, even though the main highway goes through town. We're proposing fog ordinances, which is fats, oils, and grease. And that is being supported and has been asked for several months, apparently, by Jason Wofford, who is our Public Works Manager. We're proposing dark sky ordinance similar to Dundee and Sun River, as well as no franchise ordinance for the CBD, which would allow us to fall within the historic framework and economic development the committee is working on. The overall design of this project goes against this vision. And, you know, I'm 100% pro-business. But when I look at this picture that I'd like for you to put up, Angie, if you can you put that picture up?
What picture?
The picture of their proposed project. The ones that you sent me, the canopies and the
Oh, that's not of the, I think that was just examples of what. they
no,
look like.
it's a,
Hold on.
Is it a photograph?
yeah, it's,
This is an example.
that's an example, but, okay. Oh, and it doesn't come up very big on this.
Oh, well, it's gonna be, and
Okay,
I can't show this on online. apologies.
yeah, I know that. Can you do the night one? Okay, so what I'm saying is the Planning Commission was asked to develop this downtown core. Also, there's a historical background of the downtown core. And when I look at these pictures and when I look at what this whole project is all about, this does not look like a downtown core. And when I know that my vote will be for or against something that is going to be forever, it's not going to be a 6-month project or a 10-year project. This is going to be there for the rest of Yamhill. And I've lived here for 48 years and we have been designated to look at this project of our core business. And that is exactly what Walt is saying. This doesn't look like the downtown. This project doesn't look like the downtown at all. And because our ordinances are so far behind, because we have not addressed anything in this town forever and ever, and everybody just keeps slipping it on to the next committee, the next committee, the next committee. And it has been on the agenda. all the things that needs to be done to move this and responsible for doing anything about it. And now it's in our laps. And I do not feel that I can be in good conscience saying that this looks like the rest of the city of Yamhill. Downtown, not outside. And there's so many towns that are also feeling this way, like Sisters in Lebanon and Dayton. They're all saying this is not the kind of thing they want in downtown. They have modern development, but when you've got a core district that is historic overlook, that's what this number one.
Are you saying that a gas station doesn't belong in that location?
Not the way, I mean, our code says it does.
Right.
But that's what I'm trying to say is we are also, before they came back with it, the city, we were given the responsibility to form a committee to help with the economic development as well as the historic preservation of our downtown.
Well,
That was in January.
does Sue's point about the planning commission being tasked with creating an economic, creating the right feel of Yamhill enter into the criteria here or not?
It does on that 146, let's see, let me find it. Hang on a minute.
Well, those criteria are not.
Yes, they are. That's exactly what Walt was saying.
If you want to vote that it doesn't match the character.
One on
Downtown.
1046-050, it is,
Right?
it doesn't comply with the design provision for the downtown core.
And what, it took her a little while to get there for background, but her comment is at the core of the question of design. And that's, well, even though it's allowed in the zone, they still have to meet all the design requirements. And so I think Sue's comment is that based on her opinion, what she sees in the downtown, other structures, that the layout does not conform to the pattern on Maple Street. And again, this comes down to Maple Street. And so she's making the note, it faces Maple Street and there is a certain design pattern. And I think that's the focus of her comment.
And that's exactly what you said earlier. If it was not on Maple Street, it would not be the issue. But with it being on Maple Street, it is an issue.
So you showed pictures of canopies. If you could design the front of this building however you wanted, would the fact that there would be a canopy still cause you to vote no? There's going to be a canopy with light coming down so people can see. Is that something you will always not approve?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's clear. So moving the front
Because
door.
I don't see that kind of a look on any other building or anything else on this in our downtown core. From Azalea to Second Street, I do not see anything that resembles anything that is about this whole thing.
So rearranging the front door is irrelevant to you?
It is.
Okay. Anything else?
Well, and like I said, there is ordinances here to back that up. It's supposed to be similar in character and design with the existing. It's supposed to be character, that's 1046-50. 1046-70 says the character of the neighborhood, visual and amenities. 1046-10, it is a unique challenge for cities downtown. 1028-050, compliance with intended purpose of the CBD design provisions. It doesn't fall within the design of what our downtown is. And I know that we have an old downtown, but you know, if you drive into Carlton, just as an example, The newest thing that has happened in Carlton, what was that?
A bakery.
The bakery. If you did not know that was not a current building, a new, absolutely in the last 2 years building, you'd never know it wasn't part of the downtown. Because they have got such stringent guidelines that they want to have a look in that town. And they've stayed on top of it. Dayton State, all of the towns around us have stayed on top of the ordinances and everything to bring their town up to snuff and yet give it growth. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to give it growth. The economic growth thing is what this committee was commissioned to do. But there's got to be something that we have to live with on a long-term basis. And I do not see, when I can see that nice building in Carlton blending into the character of the downtown, I do not see that this blends into the character of our downtown.
So, well, the building is getting close to being in character. I mean, what we're pointing at right now is the front door. Seems what Sue has now, I would say, surprisingly newly singled out the canopy.
Well, I'm just saying.
Is that something we can point at within the criteria to say, this doesn't look, there's no canopies downtown with light coming down? Is that a legitimate argument?
That's a very interesting question. I'm trying to mull that over. Well, bear in mind that there are provisions for drive-in and drive-through within this area. No, the code just talks about the structure of the building. In other words, where people go into. It doesn't look at the other aspects of it, except, things like manufacturing off to the side, et cetera. The focus on design is on the building. I understand Sue's point, but I think the code is pretty clear that the focus of the design is on the building in this case.
Sean, do you have anything?
I hadn't thought about this, so I'm kind of mulling it over. I think I see the look of the canopy as being,
One big sign.
yeah, it's very
It's one
modern.
big sign.
I guess I hadn't even crossed my mind that was an issue because it's a gas station is allowed. They have awnings or canopies, but I don't know if changing the design of the canopy so it doesn't have I don't know, those pictures, it was like bright colors and stuff. If the colors were muted to look more like what we have downtown, would that address your concern? Or what is it about the canopy is what I'm trying
Well,
to,
I'm just saying that the
because for
whole,
me, that's what it is, the colors. And
Yeah.
it's very-
yeah, and I don't see how, I mean, I've taken the time to go out and drive at night to go see what these things look like, including the one in Sheridan. Sure, it looks like the light is going down here, but this thing is 20 foot tall. And it's all lights. It's not like it's going like this. But I'm gonna tell you, Carol Prendergast had a conniption fit, which she legally had a right to because of that fire sign right in front of her house. And that light, and half of the year, it's dark at 4:30, 5 o'clock at night. And this is gonna be till 10 o'clock at night. It's gonna be open at 5:30 in the morning. And it doesn't even get light until like 8 o'clock in the November, December timeframe. And so when I look at that and I realize that 20 feet in the air, so that's
17.
the canopy's taller than the building. It's about 20 feet tall.
Okay.
Anyway, so here it is, 20 feet tall. And whether you like to admit it or not, there's residential right here.
Sue, I'm embarrassed that we're doing this after 3 hearings.
No, I'm
There's
sorry.
always been a canopy. I'm just like,
sorry.
whoa,
I'm just-
what have we been doing?
Well, it's.
When did this
the-
happen? You've kind of had a
I
change.
do
of-
feel like we've wasted.
Well, and I'm
time
sorry, I
for
just,
the contractor.
I
And
feel,
the
I feel bad
When
too.
did this happen?
When did this
Yeah,
happen?
you didn't say this last week. We said, let's give him everything we want right now.
Well, you know,
And
I
we
just,
didn't. You didn't.
well, and so I'm guilty.
Okay.
I just really do not feel, and I guess maybe if I hadn't gotten appointed to this committee, and we're working really hard at coming up to, there is so much that needs to be done. But like I said, having been in this city, I was involved in the city government in the late 90s. And in the late 90s, we were addressing a lot of the issues that we're needing to address right now. And that has nothing to do with this project. I'm just saying that the city has dragged their feet and postponed and put it off to the next group for forever. And now it's sitting in our lap. But this is responsible for a large project in the middle of our business district. And I have to live with myself and the people that I know and talk to and do business with. Would they like it if DeMoss and Gutterman came in here and did all this
Okay, I get it, Sue. The problem is that this is 3 hearings too late.
Well, I'm sorry, it just.
Okay, all right. Lynn, do you have anything? Can't talk, huh?
If it's important, you can text it in.
Could he call you on your phone?
Yeah.
Could you call on Angela's phone? I'm trying to
Hi,
weigh
do you want me to
balance
put you on
between
speaker so you can say something?
the economic development of bringing a business into town, the benefits of that with the look.
It's the design thing.
Yeah, I understand that,
It's a gas station.
but it's a
the
gas
problem.
station. That's
And we
really
didn't-
the issue.
Okay.
It's always been a gas station, and now we're saying, wait a minute, it's a gas station, no. I mean,
That's
that's
not
what you're
gonna work.
saying,
Sorry.
and it's just like blowing my mind. I gotta calm down.
I'm sorry.
What I can do, I can't put him on speaker because of the feedback, but if you want to repeat what he's saying, then.
Could you
Yeah.
mute? Oh, that's right, you won't be able to hear it.
Yeah.
Can you put it on speaker?
I can't because it
It'll
was.
start to go around?
Yeah, it was echoing.
All right, Lynn, what do you got to say? Okay, got it.
Did you hear that?
He's pretty much in the same camp as you.
Yes, he's agreeing with you, basically.
All right, we're gonna hang up on you now. Maybe it's not the best place for a gas station. I can't look you in the eye, Steve.
Well, how many, every single one of these things, at the very end, Walt has said, where did he say it? this gets into dangerous territory. The use may be right for the applicant's goals, but inappropriate for the size and location of the parcel. It does not appear that the application can comply with the decision criteria in section 1046
That's a modification only. We're not asking for a modification.
That's if they ask for a modification. Okay, we have two choices. We can deny and close, or we can hold it open now. If we're gonna hold it open, that means we've got a reason to ask for some change. I mean, I would vote for a continuance to get the front door as good as we can get it. They're giving us everything. He's offered one more thing. My idea is to take it. That's where I'm at.
And I would agree, that's where I'm at. While I sympathize with the concern, I also feel like there's economic benefit to the town to bring the business in. And ultimately, this has to go to the council too, right?
So we recommend to the city
No.
council.
No?
You are the final decision maker unless it's appealed to the council.
That's right. They appealed that.
So I'm interested in the door thing, because the sliding door was one of my concerns. Appearance wise, I didn't think the sliding door fit, but I feel like the building is fitting into what we've asked for. It's what we asked for last week, except for maybe the sliding door.
So, well, we seem to be at 2-2 here on who's here tonight. What do we do now?
Okay, well, you have to make a decision. Now, okay, hold on. Okay, here we go. You have to make a decision. Now, you either go for approval or denial, but if you can't make a decision and there's enough discussion on kind of the building frontage, I think the quiet way out and getting 5 members next month would be helpful because of the situation. Go ahead and request that first of all, ask the applicant. Okay, let me rewind. I think the best thing to do at this juncture, since you seem to be at an impasse, is to go ahead for the continuation. Go with the continuation, allow and request the applicant to waive to toll the 120-day clock. And also in the process, request any new information to be presented to the city by September 1. That will provide enough time to have staff write a staff report in response. But I would be sure you have it on the record with the applicant. They are tolling the 120-day clock. I'm just getting a little nervous with further continuations. I think the commission is being more than reasonable with the applicant, and I think a little good faith here would be very helpful for the applicant.
Okay, so Walter's suggesting that there is a motion to continue the hearing to
It would be September 21
Thank you.
So
at
Well.
6:30 p.m.
I'm writing you a note.
Give me a note.
I'm actually gone that day. I
Okay,
need to bump it a week or two, one way or the
I
other.
am as well.
okay.
Other than that, I'm fine.
Maybe we should work out that date.
Oh, excuse me, it is September 18th, my fault. Looking
Oh,
at
yeah,
the
you're on
month.
Wednesday.
That's still the day that I'm not,
You're still gone.
I'm gone that whole week.
I'm unavailable until the 30th, from the 15th to the 30th.
Of September.
Yes.
Can we do it sooner?
And I can do a different night of the week if that would help.
I am available on the 14th if you want to do it that way.
Or the 11th, we've kind of gone to.
14th
Monday.
is commission.
The 14th is a Thursday.
Oh, the 14th, okay, 13th, I'm sorry.
The 11th?
Cannot do, I have a meeting. Council
Said-
meeting elsewhere.
He said no.
Okay.
No, that, believe me, that's one I cannot get out of.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
like the
it's,
12th or something?
it's too soon by the 4th, the 12th, yes.
Could we do the 12th? Walt?
Will you be here on the 12th, Lynn?
I'm not available on the 12th.
And Lynn's nodding yes, and that'll work out. In fact, may I just note here,
He's not available.
12.
She's not.
Steve is not.
The 13th would work if works for everybody else.
That's the city council.
Oh,
Okay.
14th?
14th, I have a meeting that night.
All right, the end of the week before, the 7th, is that too soon?
Yes, that's too soon. He's gotta have the time to do a staff report.
well, I tell you what, we can give them 7 days. By code, request the information in by August 28th. And if you do it the 7th, I will have a staff report available on the 31st. So I can meet that deadline if you want to move it to the 7th.
Say, if we want to move it to the 7 days,
No, if you want to move it to September 7th, just provide the applicant 7 days until August 28th to provide the additional information, which is effectively what you're doing. And then I can get a report out in time by the following Thursday, which is the 31st, to meet the publication or whatever deadline for the 7th. So we're good to go from my end. That'll work.
Steve?
That would work for me. Would you be able to have 5 commissioners on the 7th?
Sorry, I didn't ask that.
Let's give, can we give John a call? Angie? John, and ask him,
I don't have John's phone number. I apologize.
does anyone have John's phone number?
I know. Lynn, does the 7th work for you? Yes, okay.
Didn't, let's see. You don't have his phone number. What's his last name?
Hodgkins, sorry. Excuse me.
How do you spell that?
Hodgdg.
I'm not hearing very well. Are you trying to look him up?
Yeah. HOD.
No, I have to look at my email now. You
Oh,
keep
I can look,
questioning.
I'll look at my email. That's fine.
Yeah, DGKINS.
See if I can find it. Let's see. Let's look at like Facebook, I guess.
Oh, I got him.
Have you found it?
Yeah.
Operator new work, yeah.
Hey, John, Ken Moore at the Planning Commission meeting. Sorry you're not feeling well. We sure missed you tonight. We've kind of come to an impasse, and and we're setting another meeting for another hearing. There'll be some design changes, but we need to make sure that you can be there. We've set the date for September 7th at 6:30. Could you be there? No, it's not on a Monday, it's on actually it's a Thursday, isn't it? Yeah, it's a Thursday after Labor Day. Yeah, Thursday. Okay, great. Yeah, just to fill you in, we were tied 2-2. We didn't actually vote, but the way we're leaning, it's like two people just don't want a gas station. And the other two of us think, well, we can make this front door a little bit better and move ahead. So, yeah, it'll all come down to you, John. So there you go.
That was
Yeah.
real nice.
So see you on the 7th and feel better. Okay, bye-bye. Maybe I said too much, but what the hell?
It's all up to you, you decide.
Did you share his phone number?
No.
Okay, we're
We're supposed to talk together after.
We're not- you're not
I won't
talking.
be talking to him. I
All
just
right.
put it in my phone.
Yes. All right.
A good person, business person never lets a phone number go by.
Okay, let me
Hey,
just,
could I, Ken, could I just state the motion to make it easier?
yeah.
Okay,
I like to see it involve sign information.
okay, let me state the motion. The hearing will be continued until September 7th at 6:30 PM. Same location and Zoom connection. The applicant has up till August 28th in which to provide additional information on the design of the building, and has just requested information on signage. That has to be in at City Hall by 5 PM on the 28th. Staff will return with a report prepared for the Planning Commission 7 days prior, which would be August 31st. And because of the shortened time frame, I don't think we need to toll the 120-day clock.
Somebody you wanna say so moved?
I second the motion, or so moved. I guess
So
somebody
moved.
else seconds.
Want to second that?
I'll second it.
Great. Great. In them changing the signs isn't gonna not make it a gas station. Is it gonna make it not a gas station? So are you really interested in what the signs are gonna look like?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, so you're leaving the door open for voting in favorable, even though there's a canopy of
I'm,
light coming down.
I'm not.
Ken?
Yeah.
Ken, yeah. You're starting to get into deliberation and there was a motion on the floor to continue.
All
it.
right. Thank you, Walt.
Okay, sorry, don't mean to be the
No.
judge here.
Let's go down, vote,
Richardson, I-
more aye.
Harlinger, aye.
Okay.
Lynn?
Thumbs up.
Aye. All right, we are continued.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay.
We haven't, I guess, we're gonna leave it up to Steve and the people he confers with on how to make a front door that we like, or we're gonna make a sketch, or just go look at the rest, or put a door in the middle of two other doors. And are we gonna say, oh, it's not a double door this time, and we want a double door and two windows, but there's not room in the building?
Well, since we closed it, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
No. Ken, he's right. The hearing's closed.
Okay. Let's see, reading, continuation, urban growth boundary. You have an update for us, Walt?
Yes, indeed, I do. Thanks to a little help from our friends at the DLCD, and I will say our friends, Melissa and Sean, I have applied for a grant to look at a code revisions and the potential to include a buildable lands inventory. The city does not have a match other than, associated staff time, for like printing and whatnot. I'm asking for 7,000 because the code work is not that hard. And if they can throw in a little bit more for a buildable lands inventory, that will be great. So an application has been made, haven't heard back, they have received it. And I will definitely keep the planning commission up to date. Now, here's the big thing about urban growth boundary amendments. And the answer is you can't do anything until January 1, 2015. Ah, got your attention. Yes, they have changed the rules on housing and population, and DLCD will not be able to put administrative rules in place until late next year, and they will not entertain any urban growth boundary amendments until January 1, 2015.
25.
2025?
25, I think.
No, excuse me, thank you. Wow, Wayback Machine, 2025. Actually, this kind of works in our favor because if we can do a code assessment, if we can do a buildable lands inventory, I'm reading we're getting a little closer to getting our water issues taken care of. Unlike a lot of communities, we could be ready to go January 1, 2025 to look at a UGB amendment. So is it good news? On the face of it, no. But on the other hand, I think if you look at the bigger picture for the city, it probably is not a bad idea. And if they can put some money into our coffers in terms of doing some of this preliminary work, I mean, you expand UGB, you have to look at your code and you have to do a buildable lands inventory. So, I mean, those things are right up front. So this will certainly help the city. And by the time those two projects are done, we will be getting very close to January 1, 2025. So that's kind of the update on the UGB.
Great, thank you.
Can I make a comment in regards to that?
Maybe afterwards, if you want to come up and chat with us, but there's not really a place on the agenda for it. If you want to say something to me afterwards, that's great. I'll make a note. Short-term rental.
Okay, I did put together a short-term rental memo, very short. It was brought to my attention that maybe Nehalem, with its impact of a lot of vacationers and folks going to the beach, may not be the best model, if you will, and I think that's accurate. I used the Carlton model, if you will. I did not do any analysis with it. This is a pretty straightforward sort of taxing program, if you will. With that, I think my main concern is the simple fact that someone has to make a decision in terms of which way we go on this. I think this is really appropriate to place outside of our land use title, which is Title 10. And so I think we're going to need some direction from the council. Now, Ken, you still go to the council, correct?
Yeah, I go to the council meetings, yes.
Okay, great. I think if you can just let them know that we have a model in place, but we need some direction, because the best you're going to do is just, as a commission, is just say this looks okay, but ultimately the council really needs to initiate action, because this is a taxing authority, if you will. So I think we just need a little help here. I don't want to spend the city's money unless the city wants me to do something. I'm just always concerned about that. I've worked with small towns forever, and I know budgets always get tight. So the last thing I want to do is, keep writing reports to no avail. So my suggestion is if we can get a little direction from the council, I think that would be very, very helpful for the commission to see if they need, or if not, then the council can decide how they want to approach it. So again, I think this is something for your consideration. And Ken, I hope you kind of bring this in front of the city council so we can get some direction here.
So, well, would that look like it seems to me we would put the draft that you have in front of them and say, what do you think? Is this, you want us to, how do you want us to go back to the drawing board with this?
I think that's a good way of doing it. Just say that we've looked at this, and I think if there's consensus on the commission, that's something a little bit more moderate. It obviously mirrors Carlton's. Just say that we believe he should go in this direction, and then ask them, do you want us to create something formally, or do you want to take the lead? I guess we're looking at more municipal code here, which is outside the purview, if you will, of the planning commission. And I'm just looking for some direction here. If you
Okay, I
think
get it.
that's the way to go, just kind of let them know that, and they could take it from there. And if they want you guys to do some more stuff on it, fine, but at least you will have that information.
All right, we went over some of the broad bones of this last time we met. And you've put this together again from, what is this we have in our packet?
Okay, this is from the city of Carlton,
Yeah.
and this is their particular material. And we just got to get my code up here.
You think this is a pretty good fit for us?
In terms of the size of the community and in terms of the complexity, I think it's a much better deal. Looking at the Nehalem one, it's pretty rigid.
Okay.
And there's a lot of inspections and checkoffs and everything. City staff is not, the city is not, floating in staff, if you will. And I think keeping things very simple would be better. Remember, you can always start here. And as the council and staff gains experience, things can change down the road. And by keeping it out of the Title 10, they can do that almost continuously because it's not subject to the notification with DLCD and 35-day notice for the initial hearing and 2 hearing processes. It takes about 4 months to get it done. So I'm just strongly suggesting keep it out. And that's why the city has maximum flexibility. And I think this Carlton one, I think checks the boxes. It talks about enforcement, how things are taxed, how, the record keeping requirements. I think it's a pretty simple and straightforward one that would probably work well for Yamhill. And the other thing too is down the road, the city can always make modifications to suit specific needs.
Okay, so you're saying before we dive into this as a council, we want to get a little stronger nod from, we've gotten a nod on the idea, but you'd like to run some of a possibility past them before we start going hammer and nails at every line here.
Exactly, that's my concern. I want to be sure that the commission and council is on the same page and that we're following council direction. And 2 or 3 more weeks, I think, would really benefit, yeah, just my 2 cents.
Sue, does that sound like a good plan to you? Yep. Elaine, are you, okay, great. All right. Angie, would it be appropriate for you to email this to the commission and say,
To the council,
to the city council?
I can add it to the agenda.
So what I would like is when I go to city council, Did I say you've had a chance, the city council, so you've had a chance to look over Carlton's rules. We wanted to give you, the planning commission wanted to give you a look at something we might begin work on if this looks like something that we can move forward refining. If we have feedback, we'd like to hear it. We're not asking them to approve this, we're not really recommending this. You see that? Okay, Sean, you hearing this? Shay, rather?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Sorry, I thought you were talking to Sean.
yeah, no, I did say Sean. I got my S's mixed. So Shay, so this is Carlton's short-term rental ordinance. Before we refine it a whole bunch and go back and forth with what we think is a good idea, we wanted to get a nod to, yeah, this is a direction that we want to go. And not that we're not recommending this one, because frankly, we haven't really dove into it very much. But before we spend Walt's time and our time, I'll come to city council and say, you guys have had a chance to look at this, is this a direction we should go? Okay,
Of course, I can't speak for council, but
that makes
I
sense.
think that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, you'll be getting an email then. Great. Can you do that?
To add it to the agenda for the next council meeting? Yeah. Well, I have it.
Do you say, what I'm asking is you to send this as an attachment and ask the city council members to look at it so that they'll be prepared to give any feedback on it.
Forward the information.
And then the agenda item is just planning commission check-in. And this will be part of it. Does that make sense? Okay, thank you. All right, well, next item.
Grease traps.
Yeah,
Once again, I think we're gonna be passing something on to the city council. I got an email back from Yamhill County Building, and my error for not getting it into the packet, I finally dug it out of the junk file. So anyway, let me just read it to you. My question was, the city has a number of older restaurants that we believe do not have grease traps in their kitchens. Public Works is concerned this will eventually create issues with the sewage treatment plant. Our question, is there some regulation that requires retrofitting commercial kitchens to comply with current regulations? And here's the response I received. Walt, I cannot tell them they now need to put in a grease trap. If someone installs a kitchen or changes their kitchen drainage, we can then require it. That I would do is find all commercial food handling. Okay, what I would do is find all commercial food handling establishments and see which ones don't have a grease trap interceptor. Then I would ask ones who don't if they would put one in. If they don't comply, then the city council would need to pass something requiring them to install one. So here's the situation. These, if you don't have a grease trap, but your restaurant was built in the 40s or 50s, you didn't install a grease trap, they're effectively grandfathered in. Now, if they make modifications to the kitchen, they have to upgrade. But until then, we have no authority in our code to go ahead and tell them you've got to put in a grease trap. Now, my thinking is, again, Ken, I think if you can bring this before the city council, and I will forward this email to Angela, okay? And so make a note of this. Forward. Okay, what I'm going to do is suggest that if the city wants to look at making a requirement, that might be beneficial to help the Public Works Director. My thought is, though, this might be coming out of, I know it's to help the city, but the city council may want to think of some partnership program to go ahead and maybe, I don't know how much it costs to install these, I don't know if it would be very expensive, but maybe just work with a partnership with these restaurants just to help them out. And I think that might be, could have benefits down the road in terms of council business working together. But right now, there is no requirement to retrofit. The only requirement to retrofit is if modifications were specifically made to the kitchen area. And then if you can ask them, and if they don't want to do it, the only way to change it is to make it a requirement. But I think if the council, city can develop some partnership with these restaurants, that might be beneficial. But that's the status on grease traps.
Okay, I just wanted to understand this option that it sounded like the memo said the city council had to specifically request or require an existing restaurant to do it. Would that be changing code or addressing that particular restaurant head on?
Basically, what the council would have to do is pass a law or ordinance that says all restaurants in town must comply with grease trap interceptor requirements by a certain date.
Maybe that's what Jason's asking for. I'll clarify.
I think he is. My thought is, from the county building perspective, that's the only way to get it done. My only thought to tag on to that is that might be worthwhile to develop some sort of cooperative arrangement with the restaurants. So, believe me, this would be very new for them.
So when you say pass a law, is that a code that would originate perhaps in the planning commission?
No, this would be council. And again, my suggestion is just carry this forward to the council and just let them know we've looked at this. Here's the county building take on it. And here's some options they want to look at. Again, I would hope that there might be some cooperative program. I wonder if there might be some grants out there available. I just have no clue what it costs to install a grease trap interceptor today, but just a thought.
When you say pass a law, and tell me the difference between law and code.
Oh, basically, we're talking the same thing. It would be a city ordinance that would have the effect of law that says, if you own a restaurant, you have to have a grease trap. And if you don't have the grease trap now, you have to have one installed by, say, a certain date. So that would be a city health regulation.
Well, yes, but I guess I asked about, would that originate in the commission? Because we often work on code here and then we pass it to the city council for their approval. So would they be asking us for a recommendation of a code?
Well, I think you should look at this as the same thing as short-term rental. Ask them for a little direction. Again, this is not something that would be put in the planning section of the municipal code. This is not a Title 10 issue. I think this is separate from that. And I think something that the council needs to consider the next step. I wish I could come up with something more definitive, but again, just like short-term rental, this will be placed on the council's lap to figure out whether or not they want to make that requirement. And I think coordinating with the public works director is going to be critical here. But again, this is not planning per se, but it's certainly public health. And again, just for the ease of adoption and enforcement, keep it out of Title 10. And if they want us to look at some options, I'd be happy to follow up.
Okay, and when I give my report, it is true that if you modify or install a new kitchen, you are required to put in a grease trap, but
Absolutely. And that's right out of Tim Codiga's comments. So I will forward this email to Angela.
Okay, and I'm gonna confirm with the city council that they in fact want code that removes the grandfather situation that'll require everyone comply.
Okay, and if that's the case, then I don't know whether we would do it, whether the city attorney would look at it, whether Jason would find it. I think again, like the short-term rental, let's get a little direction and and if they want the commission to do it, I will give it my best shot and coordinate with Jason. How's that?
Okay, and I will also put on the table your idea of kind of a partnership, helping restaurants bear it, and because both the city and the restaurant will benefit.
But it's not just restaurants. The schools, both of the schools, any kind of cafeteria situation would be
No,
involved. T&E would be involved because of their deep frying and all that kind of stuff. The new store would have it. So it would be more than just, you can't just say restaurant. It would be any facility that would have a commercial kitchen.
and that's true. That's
Great.
And,
All right.
and, you know, I talked to Jason about this, and he said that at any given time, that we're right on the cusp of being in DEQ, in fault with them, because they have so much difficulty getting all of the stuff out of, and we're adding 57, is it 57 or 53 new houses? 57 new houses, and so that's going in there. And then on top of it, if we have this go in also, I mean, that's just adding to his major problems. And he said it's all he can do to stay away from being in compliance with the EQ regulations before that water is dumped back into the streams. So it is definitely a difficult thing. And he's been asking apparently for a while for somebody to look at this. So.
I came to the rescue.
All right, I think we're ready for a committee report. Economic Development Committee. Jenny, are you still with us?
Oops, I hit the wrong one.
Jenny Morrison.
Reporting for duty. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I prepared a 1-hour presentation, so I hope you guys all have time for this. Just kidding.
Good.
Yes, so I will keep this brief. I shared some of this with the city council meeting 2 weeks ago. And what we have been working on, I think Sue gave a good recap there, but the purpose of our committee is to really, think about smart business development that's going to enhance our unique community. And we want to promote local investment in the community, thinking about that by the people who live here. And there's an additional, so we talked about the vacation rental. I'm glad we talked about the grease trap. So we've been kind of reviewing some things, but I feel like there's, as you can see from the discussion tonight, there's definitely a sense of urgency that our committee feels because of the things that are happening and the opportunities for our town, as I mentioned earlier, our limited area to improve with our downtown. And so thinking, focused on that, an additional potential guideline or code that has come up. We were thinking about, with the zoning and types of codes, and there's something that has come up regarding formula business restrictions. And this is Walt, I wanted to get we can talk about this offline, but propose this, that there are certain communities that have this, and the purpose of this formula business restriction, or FBR, is to prevent or discourage formula businesses coming to town, again, to promote local investment, and by the community, by the people who live here. And if we want to think about ordinances that protect the existing mom and pop stores, that protect the unique community character, some examples for Bellingham, Washington, some something that's here on the West Coast, but there are quite a few cities and towns enacting this. And so we wanted to look further into that and think about the benefit of putting together a recommendation to have this type of code. And, you know, the long-term economic consequences of having this, you know, if you have the certain businesses that come in that maybe are formula types that want to take advantage of the town, and then there's an economic downturn and these outside businesses move out, well, then you're still left with our local community, the people who live here who want to have an opportunity to have their own local businesses. And then often, you know, these are their fair weather businesses and they disappear when, you know, when there's an economic downturn. So this is what we want to think about that and pursue that direction as an additional code or recommendation.
Thank you, Jenny. Yes, Jenny and I, Walt, this is, we're piling a lot of things on to ourselves. But these are two more that the city council did give a nod to. The Formula business restrictions, have you heard of these before?
Yes. And I think I think Bellingham was a good example.
Okay, well, the council said, yes, go ahead and pursue that for Yamhill.
Okay.
So there you go. And Jenny might, you might, like she said, talk to you offline. She's done some research about this. So.
If she can give me a call tomorrow, that would be really, really a good place to start. So.
Is that good, Jenny?
Yes, I can do that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Another
Yes.
one that the Economic Development, or the Downtown Association kind of brought up through the Economic Development Committee and to the Planning Commission, to the City Council, was lighting nuisance.
Dark sky.
Yes, and I presented it to the City Council more as lighting nuisance than dark sky sounded kind of
Ominous.
yeah, woo-woo or something. Nobody wants glare in their face. So they also gave a nod to come back because I think everybody's retinas are still kind of on fire from that fire station sign. And so anything that brings up not having that happen again was of interest.
May I ask one favor of you when you go to the council?
Yeah,
Could they establish some priorities?
yeah.
Just a thought, so we can focus on their interests. And it's basically self-explanatory. Let's get some priorities and move from there.
Well, let's self-reference, let's just kind of do that here where we've got Jenny. I would say the top of the list is urban growth boundary, but that is in motion and it has a long time frame. The next thing that we've really been hearing a lot is the grease traps. If I was going to order these things. Then between Formula business, short-term rental and lighting, I'll leave it to maybe Jenny, you want to go in on that, or Sue, do you want to talk about?
Just as a sideline, there is a company that we all have a bad taste in our mouth about. Dollar General approached Rocky Losley about his house on the corner and my granddaughter, who owns the Laughlin House, wanting to purchase both of those and level them to build a Dollar General on the corner.
Right, I think.
That's how close we are.
Yeah, Jenny will fill in Walt on that. So yeah, it's right on our doorstep.
Yeah.
As far as prioritizing Formula business restriction, light nuisance, and rental ordinance, maybe you would put Formula business next.
Yeah, I really would.
Jenny, would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
That plus the, tying in the design codes, I think that fit under that umbrella. Absolutely.
Okay. Between rental ordinance and lighting nuisance, we want to get ahead of any lighting nuisances. However, we're kind of farther down the road with rental ordinance. I think they're both kind of tied for the last place. Walt?
Yeah, in terms of what I'm hearing tonight, it's like, as you said, we kind of know where we are with the UGB, but at least we're taking steps.
Yeah.
And then the grease trap, I think that's something that could be fairly simple to kind of take care of. This formula business will take a little bit more work. And I think having that up toward the top would be a little easier, and
Okay.
follow up on that.
Okay, we'll get some feedback from the city council on short-term rental, and we'll see what they say.
Mm-hmm.
That'll give us some guidance. And the nuisance lighting, they said go ahead. Like I said, that's near the bottom.
Okay. One other thing I'd like to point out, and I forgot to mention it. Technical assistant grants are coming up. And this is where the state has money for, a lot of little things that cities can do. I mean, these are not huge grants, but I mean, 5,000 or 6,000 here, 10,000 there. And the number one priority is economic development. When we meet on September 7th, what I'm going to do, I will send the grant information to Angela, and I'll ask her to distribute it to everyone on the planning commission. When we meet together in September, I think we should have a discussion item on what we might want to go after. And if we can get some money to do some of these things, certainly not opposed to it. We have up until October 2nd in which to make an application. So we still have plenty of time, but let's start, look at the grant. They're very simple to fill out. They're not asking for, a master's thesis, but they want to make sure that we have interests and desires and it fits in with the planning program and also their goals, which again, right now is economic development. So let me get that to you, and we could meet again on the 7th and chat about that. Fair enough?
Sounds good. I'm close to adjournment here unless there's,
Did Jenny have anything else?
Jenny, do you have anything else?
I was just going to say, Walt, when we talk tomorrow, I'd like to know more about the grants, because that is definitely something for the Yamhill Downtown Association, and then with our economic development that we are actively pursuing as well. So there might be some overlap and some things that we can kind of put together. So we've got the energy and the motivation.
Fair enough. Sounds good.
Thanks.
All right, then. We stand adjourned.
Good evening, folks.
For my lack of professionalism.
Thank you, everybody.